Hi everyone, welcome inside Mullet Arena for the Sun Devil Source Series recap. I'm Gabby Chernoff, that's Jake Sloan. We're here following ASU's 0-1-1 weekend against number 20 Colorado College. The Sun Devils NCHC home opener for this year. 3-3 tie going down in the scorebooks from last night, although a 4-3 win in the shootout and then a 3-1 loss tonight. Sun Devils are 4th in NCHC standings with 5 points and are 44th in the NPI rankings. Jake, what were your overall takeaways? Two very close games this weekend.
Yeah, the story of the entire weekend was just multi-goal deficits. Last night, it was 3 goals given up in the first period. They were able to come back in that third period to tie it up, go to overtime, and get the shootout win. But tonight, it was 2 goals in the second period. They responded with a goal on their own, with just 30 seconds left in the period, but then they couldn't get anything going in the third period, and an empty netter kind of sealed the deal.
Yeah, and then 3-6-1 overall this year. All 6 of those losses, ASU has had its goalie pulled, so that just goes to show you how close those losses have been. ASU has kind of struggled, and we saw that this weekend with coming all the way back to win when they do fall short. That was something that they had a lot of success with last year. Cullen Potter acknowledged that post-game. He said, we did a really nice job in that aspect of our game last year, which is kind of what made us so good. So, Jake, from your perspective, what did you see that the Sun Devils could have done better, or maybe the post-game sentiments to just make sure they start winning those games?
Yeah, I mean, it all starts with the youth. Their youth is kind of showing here. Last year, it was a lot of seniors kind of coming up, delivering in those big moments. And this year, the seniors, Bennett Schmidt, Cruz, Lucius, Kyle Smolin, and Colin Potter, the sophomore, they haven't been able to live up to those expectations that were left behind for them. And as a result, they've leaned more heavily on the entire team. And when you have 17 newcomers, 11 of which are freshmen, you're going to see some mistakes bleed through, especially just 10 games into the season. It's still a work in progress in terms of limiting those mistakes, getting the chemistry, everyone on the same page, so you can kind of get the ball rolling and get a spark in the late game situations.
Yeah, and it's kind of to be expected. Like you mentioned, 11 freshmen, even Greg Powers has acknowledged this year that this is a young team. They're going to make mistakes, but something that we've also seen is that the Sun Devils really let those mistakes snowball, and this weekend we saw it quite a bit. I mean, 3-0 yesterday after the first period. 2 of those goals came within 50 seconds of each other, and then 2 goals pretty quickly here tonight in the second period as well. So that's one of the themes. What other kind of big themes can we take away from this series that have become trends for ASU all season long?
I think another big thing is just the performance of Samuel Urban. These past 2 games came in with just 2 games played. Connor Hasley being the guy for a majority of the games so far this year. And then this weekend, he's able to keep ASU in it last night to give them a chance to tie the game back up. And then today, conceding 2 goals, although one of which was a 50-50 goalie interference chance that Powers said his challenge to play was unsuccessful. We'll get more to that later. And then the second goal that he gave up was deflected off of his own teammate Anthony Dowd's stick in between his pads and into the back of the net. So it's just hard to be able to track the puck with so much movement going on. And then obviously the third goal with him not being in the net with the empty net goal. So he's now 4th in the NCHC with a .924 save percentage, and then just 4 games into his collegiate career, he's really stood out as one of the 11 freshmen to be on watch.
Yeah, and he's definitely been a bright spot for ASU, well below 500 this season. But another theme that kind of keeps popping up is ASU's power play. It's been very up and down. They've had some good games tonight, not so much. They couldn't score a power play goal. Greg Powers said that was the difference tonight. You know, it was a 1-goal game. One team scored a power play goal, the other one didn't, and the team that won the special teams battle ended up winning the game. He said that was something that he really wanted to drill down on going into this weekend. Yesterday, ASU got 2, and they weren't able to keep that same thing up today. But like you kind of mentioned, Greg Powers used his challenge pretty early on, and then ASU scored what looked to be the game-tying goal in the third period. It went off of Cruz Lucius's hand out in front. They ruled that he swatted it in with his hand, and Powers was out of his challenge. So something that maybe could have altered the game.
Yeah, there are multiple situations where that happened. Obviously, the Lucius goal, and Powers also mentioned that there was a hit on Anthony Dowd that he felt should have been a 5-minute major, and that can easily turn the game on its head, especially with how ASU's power play unit looked last night. Obviously, tonight wasn't at that same level. So when you use your challenge that early, 6 minutes into the second period, you have to play the last 44 minutes whatever the referee says goes. And with Colorado College using their timeout in the second period, both teams just had to abide by the refs for the remainder of the second period and the third period. So when you use your challenge that early, that's a risk that you have to take. But Powers said that he would take that risk every single time because of the circumstances that it was a goal that had the potential to be called back. Like he said, it was a 50-50 chance. He's seen referees call that back. Those referees weren't here tonight, though.
Yeah, and it's quite a schedule gauntlet ahead for ASU. Greg Powers has said multiple times this season, or I guess 3 times this season after their 3 wins, winning breeds win. You hope that winning breeds winning, and this is a tough series to come off of given what ASU has ahead on its schedule. They go to North Dakota, number 8 team in the country right now, just swept Omaha this weekend, and then after that Denver comes to town. Denver just swept the reigning champions, Western Michigan. Then welcome in a Big Ten team in Ohio State right after that. So, Jake, what do you think this weekend and what ASU can take away from it could mean for this upcoming 3 weeks that it has?
Yeah, this is going to be the biggest test of the season by far so far, especially for all these young freshmen. This is just the first of 5 consecutive weekends in which they'll face a ranked opponent. So, especially being in the NCHC, you can't ask for much of a better test if you want to get your freshman battle tested. But I think the biggest thing is just finding the positives. Like Colin Potter said, they moved the puck well in the first period. They didn't commit a single penalty. They didn't allow a goal. They kept the turnovers to a minimum in that opening 20 minutes. So I think that's the biggest thing that they can take away, and just playing team hockey. This is a very new group that is just 10 games in. They're still working on that, with a lot of the leaders kind of stepping up, with a lot of seniors gone from last year. And there's still a lot of growing pains, and Powers has mentioned that consistently, that he's seeing a lot of good things from his young talent, and it'll just continue to progress, hopefully, in his words, towards wins.
Yeah, and like Cullen Potter said, as you kind of briefly mentioned, there's some good takeaways and some bad takeaways. Something that Greg Powers kind of hit on yesterday was that he wants to see his team play a full 60 minutes. I mean, we saw in the last 40 minutes yesterday, ASU was the better team for those 40 minutes, but because of how they played in that first period, that's what cost them the win, and that's why they ultimately had to settle for the tie. And Cullen Potter kind of said the same thing. His sentiment was something along the lines of, there were flashes of us playing as a team. There were flashes of us playing together. I asked Greg Powers what his take on tonight was, if they were able to play a full 60 minutes. He didn't answer directly. He kind of said, same thing. He mentioned a few specific instances where it looked like ASU was able to kind of get together, but it wasn't consistent enough to string together a win. But ASU's offense all of this weekend, it came from its top 6, so that's its top 2 lines. Jake, what do you think that kind of says about, just where else they can get scoring from, especially since this team is so young and the players on those top 2 lines are veteran guys?
Yeah, like you said, they're veteran guys. Powers knew exactly what he was going to get out of them. Obviously, Jack Beck being the only freshman in that top 6, Powers said as soon as they get him back from him sitting out 6 games, he was going to be a top 6 guy. He's shown that he deserves to be that guy, scoring 2 goals this weekend, 1 last night and 1 tonight, the lone goal tonight for the Sun Devils. And they're very top-heavy, it seems like, on offense. Obviously, those bottom 6, there's a lot of freshmen, a lot of transfers, a lot of uncertainty for Powers and that bottom 6, and it's just kind of him waiting to see what he can get. He said multiple times in the beginning of the year, and he continues to say that this is the deepest and most talented team that he's ever had. With the new CHL rule change, he's brought in over a plethora of guys from up north in the Canadian hockey leagues to kind of help bolster that bottom 6. And while he hasn't seen what he wants just yet from them, he's mentioned how confident he is that they can continue to grow. And even on the defensive side, there's a lot of young defensemen. That's what's kind of forced Powers goalies to step up in these big moments. Hasley is 3rd in the NCHC with saves per game. Urban is 1st with 32. They're facing a lot more shots than maybe Powers goalies would have faced last year, because he had so many graduates and seniors in front of the goalies and that defenseman core. So Powers has reiterated it time after time. This is a very young team, 11 freshmen. He's just waiting to see how they can continue to grow.
And those bottom 6 forwards have provided something that won't necessarily show up on a stat sheet. They've been very physical presence. That's something I've noticed when those bottom 6 forwards are on the ice. But within those bottom 6 and within the D-core, we've seen a lot of line shuffling these past few weekends. So it seems like those top 2 lines are pretty solidified, but probably just mixing some things up to see what clicks, what kind of chemistry Greg Powers can get. Hopefully, if you're the Sun Devils, you kind of figured it out this weekend because, like we mentioned, number 8, North Dakota next week, and then they'll welcome Denver into town the week after that, and then Ohio State. So until next week, we have media availability on a Tuesday as well. This has been Gabby Chernoff and Jake Sloan for the Sun Devil Source Series Recap.